People empty me. I have to get away to refill. C. Bukowski.
Quiet people have the loudest minds. Stephen Hawking. Good morning. My name is Grace Christini. I'm a sixth form boarder from Wilton, Connecticut. I came in as a new sophomore, and now I am an old senior. That's crazy to me. The Westminster community has become my home, but to get to the point where I am today took me a lot longer than I expected. One of the main reasons adapting to boarding school life took so long is because I'm an introvert. Change scares me a lot and causes me to feel uncomfortable and out of place in new situations. Also, a pandemic shutting down first my new school and then most of the world did not help me with my journey. For 2 years, Westminster was the school I had to be dragged back to when the vacation ended. The only way I had heard of this place was through my mom, who graduated with the class of 1994. She mentioned this school a little bit when I was younger, but other than knowing about Hill Holidays, where she got a day off every time a faculty baby was born, and the time her friends went to cut down their own Christmas tree for their dorm squib, I basically knew nothing about Westminster, other than the fact that it sounded like a really fun sleepaway camp. Little did I know how far that was from the truth. But even still, when I first stepped onto Westie's campus, I immediately knew that I wanted to go here. After the process of applying and getting in, I was so excited to be branching off on my own and creating a new life for myself. I said my goodbyes to my teachers and my friends in Wilton, and I was ready to go until the night I realized I had to leave home and I would not be coming back for almost 2 months. To me, all of a sudden, this felt like forever. I remember crying to my mom that night, afraid I had made the wrong choice, leaving everything I knew behind. I made her promise that if I hated Westminster, I could come home for my junior year at my old school. On the first day of school, because I was so mixed up with the schedule, I accidentally went to Mrs. Keogh's class twice. The first time, I sat down and realized right away that I was in a scary class with scary fifth formers, and I felt multiple stares as none of these juniors had a clue who I was. Mrs. Keogh must have seen my terrified face, as she then emphasized that this class was U.S. history, and a clear attempt not to single me out, and stated that everyone there should be a junior. I bolted out of that class as fast as I could. Later, when I got to her room for the right class, I became terrified again, just by hearing Mrs. Keogh say the words, graded discussion. Speaking in front of people, in general, was one of my worst nightmares. After class, I went up to her and began stressing about how I was not comfortable speaking in front of everyone, as I didn't feel smart enough. Mrs. Keogh said, in her usual pep talk tone, "There's a reason you got into this school, Grace. It's not just because your mom went here. You need more confidence in yourself." This quote had stuck with me every time I started to doubt myself at this school, and I'm forever grateful for her advice. My sophomore year was not the best. I was in an unfamiliar place with unfamiliar people, and I just wanted to go back to the comfortable life that I'd made in Wilton. I'd been taking dance classes at my old studio since I was 2. I'd been part of the high school soccer team, and I'd left behind a good group of friends. At Westminster for a while, my only friend was Netflix, and although that year I had the best grades, I didn't really have a social life. You see, the problem was, as an introvert, I had no idea how to make friends. I love being with friends, but I'm also comfortable being alone and not socializing all the time. I have a social battery that, believe it or not, does run out. Fast forward to spring in March of 2020, and rumors were flying around about the idea that we might all be staying home from school for the rest of the year. I'm not gonna lie, I was actually relieved. I didn't want to go back to my lonely life at Westie. Instead, I could spend time with my friends at home. Summer was fine as I didn't have school in my mind until August, when I realized I would have to go back soon. When my mom asked me if I wanted to enroll in another year at Westminster, I immediately hesitated, as I remembered what happened during my sophomore year, but I didn't want to be a quitter. The decision to try again came from realizing I had the potential to stand out in this school, instead of comfortably blending into the crowd like usual. Once I made the decision to re-enroll, of course, my parents made me go back for the 2-week quarantine, afraid I would miss out on all the fun. This was an experience I will never forget. From getting yelled at constantly with all the new rules and having to wear masks even outside, it was definitely a different Westie. But during that 2-week quarantine, I made new friends through scheduled outdoor time and grab-and-go lunches. Junior year was the year I finally began to branch out, instead of simply staying isolated and wondering if I should be here. I found my group of friends, a way to both dance and sing, and I wanted to dedicate myself to this idea I had. This idea was a club my friend Olivia and I created called Art with Heart. This club we made was during winter term, as it was a place for people to de-stress and hang out with their friends. I was putting myself out there and getting more involved in the community. But just when life really seemed to be looking up, one Tuesday night in March around 2 a.m., I woke up in Kelter in excruciating pain, clutching my side. I remember stumbling over to my roommate and having her wake up Miss Finn. Before I knew it, I was in an ambulance on my way to the hospital. Turns out I was suffering from a torsion twist caused by a cyst that had been bothering me for years. My mom drove from home to find me spending the night in a Yukon hospital room. I was so relieved because I was exhausted and not sure what was going on. My bed was wheeled into multiple rooms for examination, where I was poked and prodded for what seemed like forever. But luckily, the surgeons were generous enough to squeeze my surgery first thing in the morning, as I was in so much pain. This was a scary experience, but throughout it all, I kept thinking, there's so much left for me to do at Westie. I had the spring show coming up with amazing dances I cannot wait to perform. I had new friends I want to spend my spring with, making memories. I wanted to try and join the track team, as last spring got canceled. I just wanted to go back to school. The first thing I said to my mom after I got out of surgery was, take me back to school. I have to go back to school. I don't want to go home. I had never said those words in my life, especially about Westminster. It only took a night trip to the ER to help me realize a very basic fact. Out of this whole long-winded story, I hope you noticed one thing. There were several times that I honestly struggled coming back to Westminster. But even when I was so close to not returning, a gut feeling made me stick it out to the end, and I am so glad I did. What I've learned is that some people who are, like me, quiet and shy, can sometimes take longer to adapt to a new setting. But if you challenge yourself and stay hopeful, you will grow as a person, and you might even end up, like me, giving a chapel talk, which is the last thing I would have wanted to do 2 years ago. In a flash, you realize that the life you tried so hard to build for yourself, in a place that was new and unfamiliar, where you struggled and faced countless challenges, is one that you wouldn't want to change for anything. Thank you.
Thank you.